This is my first post the pandemic becoming a real thing podcast. I hope you enjoyed my first two of 2020, which is Hindsight is So 2020 and I Love It When a Plan Comes Together. This one is being named Sobriquet. I just blanked for a second. And it'll come back to me. Crossing the Rubicon. That's what it is. Because I actually looked up Crossing the Rubicon. My friend Tony, and when I say friend, to be clear, my producer Tony, who's standing behind the camera, I looked up Crossing the Rubicon because I've heard the expression many times and I knew what it meant and I've used it in conversation. But I wanted the specifics, and Tony and I got in a conversation in between segments, and here it is. Julius Caesar's crossing the Rubicon River in January, and I love that somehow the human race has kept such great records that they know that this was January 49 BC. So 50 years, roughly, so we're talking about 2,070 years ago. 2,070 years ago, it precipitated the Roman Civil War, which ultimately led to Caesar becoming dictator and the rise of the imperial era of Rome. Caesar had been appointed to a governorship over a region that ranged from southern Gaul, which is what we now call France, to Elysium, but not Italy. So what he basically did was cross a river. He explicitly ordered not to bring his army across the Rubicon River, which was at the time a northern boundary of Italy. Because with the way the Rubicon flows, evidently once you get on one side, you're stuck. You're over there. You're staying. You can't come back. And that's kind of what's happened with us. We have crossed the Rubicon. We're on the other side of civil rights being, a discussion. It's not a discussion. For the first time in my life, I've seen action. And I don't just mean protesting. Let's forget looting, because that's a very specific conversation. And that's not even the bigger part of the conversation. It's just the more visually intriguing and violent and compelling to the lowest vibration of human nature. Okay? But it's not the majority. It's really not. There's been tons and tons and tons of peaceful. You don't measure it in tons. We're not weighing the people, but you know what I mean. Enormous amounts of, in fact, the other day, my niece and I were in a hipster neighborhood of LA called Silver Lake, and we actually saw people marching very much like you would have seen in New Orleans post-Katrina. Something out of the show Treme. They were marching with horns. They were playing music, and it was lively and it was exuberant, and it didn't feel menacing or negative or mean-spirited. And I say this because I have seen displays in the media and in person in my neighborhood. To be very clear, I don't think there's any value in negativity. I've never been the person who's against anything. It makes my friends very angry that I won't speak out against. Whether you do or don't like something is A, none of my business, or B, whether I do or don't like something, unless we're having a private, intimate conversation which has unspoken agreements that those are the conversations we're going to have. But I don't go bananas against things. And I don't think it serves humanity, specifically our country in these times, to have signs that say, F the police, or kill pigs, or, no, this is not good. It's not good. It's not right. It is a low vibration. It benefits no one. If anything, it makes what you perceive to be intolerant people feel the need to double down and say, no way. And I don't even understand what the expression defund, what does that mean? Just stop paying them? Have volunteer? I mean, I don't even understand. Honestly, to me, that's a ridiculous statement. It's ridiculous. But I understand that for me, thinking that that's ridiculous and stating it out loud publicly, there's going to be people that are upset with me. Because let's face it, everybody knows someone personally who, I heard bananas things. Okay. On the one hand, there's people that would swear on their children's eyes that Trump stole the election with the help of Russia. They just believe that to the core of their being, that the whole thing was just a theft, a farce. Okay, I understand. I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong, because I'm not going to reveal to you what I think. What I'm saying is I respect that people believe that. I have friends on the other side who couldn't believe that I didn't just go right along with them, that, Hillary was a lying biatch who could have potentially been behind the murder of people, including Vince Foster. And they would say this to me with straight faces and look me dead in the eye like, how can you not know this? Are you stupid? You're so smart, Monique. How could you not believe what I believe? Well, the answer is because I am so smart. And I'm smart enough to know that if I don't make my own decisions, then I'm not doing the most important of all American things, which is free to think what I want to think, free to believe what I want to believe, separation of church and state. I'm a spiritual person. I've got nothing against God. I say it all the time. But I don't believe that it has a place that in legislation, in government. I don't. What I believe is my own business. I understand that there's a lot of people that are still upset that we don't have, the Pledge of Allegiance followed by the Lord's Prayer, or whatever we used to say. When I was a kid, it went from a prayer to a moment of silent meditation. I remember the first sort of famous atheist. Again, I'm not looking at notes. If you're watching me, you can see. I believe her name was Madeleine O'Hare. And she was the first sort of famous atheist.
Do you feel like the courts may be softening up and will allow eventually prayer back into the classroom?
No, I do not. I think that the best shot has been made that can be shot by the religious community, and that they have failed consistently.
I understand that as Americans, we not only have the right to believe what we believe, that as long as it's not mean-spirited, murderous, felonious, whatever word you want to add to that, you're going to be okay. You're going to find your people. But I'm here to tell you that in the last 2 weeks, I never even, you would hear rumblings in the past of things like Antifa. And now people talk about Antifa like they're talking about a quarterback being traded. It's like a thing. Like, well, yeah, everybody knows Antifa is going to be first string quarterback for the Cowboys whenever we're playing football again. Like, yes, I know what it means. I'm not stupid. I looked it up. I had heard the words before. I know they've been around since Nazi Germany. I know that some people think that they're super left destabilizing force that just wants anarchy and to destroy the culture. I get that. I'm not even saying you're wrong. But if we're going to call Antifa a terrorist group, how in the heck has the Ku Klux Klan made it to 2020 without being declared a domestic terrorist group? Their only agenda is to spread hatred and intimidate people. They're not even pretending it isn't. They're just saying as Americans, we're allowed to hate whoever we want in a group. Okay. But let's be honest, things escalate. There is no stasis on a physical plane. What are the chances you're going to sit around talking about people you hate, smoking weed or drinking rye or doing whatever they do in their meetings when they take the hoods off, and you're not going to get yourself worked into a lather that eventually is going to translate into some sort of action? I mean, is there a possibility? There's always a possibility. And there's a possibility that when I'm walking my dog tonight on the roof of this building, that I'm going to meet a friendly alien. It's always possible. I hope for it on most nights. Hasn't happened yet. I want to talk about, in this final segment, what needs to happen, which is we're going to go full circle to what I talked about in the first segment, which is communication. And how much faster we can talk and how much less real talking we do. How much of it's bullshit and cut and paste and conspiracy and parroting what we heard other people say that we haven't even bothered to vet to see if it's even true. You just heard your brother's cousin's mother-in-law talking about, pallets of bricks in bad neighborhoods or whatever. Let's be honest. When it was harder to talk to people, maybe we thought about what we wanted to say more. Did you remember when you were in junior high, if you're around my age, and a boy would call? And first of all, you had 2 phones. You had one in the kitchen, and if you were from a good family and you were a baller, your parents might have had one in their room, and if you were a super baller, you might have had one in the hallway. But usually, you had a phone in the kitchen on the wall, hanging, and it would ring, and your mother would answer, and she'd say, "It's for you." People would yell across the house, and then you would say, "Who is it?" And then your mom would say, "It's a boy." And then you would run to the kitchen, and you would get the phone, and you would stretch the cord as long as it would go so you could sit on the floor of the dining room up against the wall, hoping that people weren't actually eavesdropping and spying on you, which was impossible. It was happening. What did he want? Why did he call? What are you doing? But remember those calls? Remember how precious? Remember how your parents would tell you it's time to hang up? Remember how there was a finite amount of time that you could communicate because of the physical limitations of having a single phone line in your house? That you couldn't just infinitely text and emoji and whatever else you're doing. You couldn't. You had several hours a day that you could talk on the phone if nobody needed the phone. And then your boyfriend would say, "You hang up first." And you'd say, "No, you first. No, you first. No, you first." It would take 3 minutes to decide who was going to hang up on who because neither one of you wanted to hang up. And you just enjoyed the dead air of having the phone wire between you. And now we can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, across the world. And what are we choosing to say? And does it matter? And are we having honest conversations? See, I think that it's not about lots and lots of legislation. I think it's about purposeful and upholdable legislation. I don't think it's about tons and tons of talk. I think it's about 2 or 3 meaningful conversations. For instance, I'm just going to say it. I'm not afraid of law enforcement. I'm not against law enforcement. As a road comic, I was helped several times by policemen when I had a flat tire, or I almost ran out of gas, or I did run out of gas. I was on the road as a comedian for 10 years by myself, just my dog. I don't have a single negative thing to say about law enforcement and how they came to my aid on numerous occasions. As somebody with bad credit and bald tires that never had enough cash to fix stuff, it worked out. On the other hand, I don't like the idea, and you see it in the movies, and if you see something over and over again, there's a possibility that it's based in some sort of truth, that there is sort of a feeling of omerta, that police just don't talk about what goes on in their squad cars. Look, body cams are body cams, but human beings always figure out a way around things. The battery was dead. It wasn't working. I forgot to put it on. My dog ate my body cam. But, is there a place that a policeman could honestly say something about his own mental health, about things he'd seen, about questionable procedures, about bad arrests, that could be 100% confidential, where somebody wouldn't be labeled a snitch and their life and livelihood instantly put at risk? Is there a place for honest conversation within law enforcement? Because I got news for you. I don't like closed groups. It didn't work for the Catholic Church. Legislation had to be passed so that they couldn't, air quotes, police their own, which was no policing at all. It really just involved a lot of cover-ups and pedophilia. So I agree that there has to be legislation passed when things reach the level of material. But wouldn't it be great if it didn't get to that level, because there was a place where an officer could have an honest conversation about a problem before the silence by definition made it escalate? These things aren't happening, but they need to. And remember that protest marches and police forces and law enforcement are made up of individuals that become a group, and then there is a mass consciousness. And just because You know, and I'm not talking about a few bad apples, because that's been a quote sort of bandied about. What I'm saying is that this country is only as good as the individuals that put together any given group. And maybe as individuals, whether we're in law enforcement or we're in a march or we're in neither, we need to observe our own core values of how we really feel about these things. And if you don't want to have a conversation with another person, have a conversation with yourself and say, you know what? I feel this way, and this way. But I don't even know that people are honest enough to within themselves to talk about how they feel, because there's a difference between culture and inculcation. I am culturally, in many ways, Latina. I have not been inculcated with racism. And I got news for you, boys and girls. That's a dirty little secret. All minorities don't love each other and stick together and sing kumbaya merely by the fact that they are minorities. You know, it's not like gay people and black people and Latino people all get together and say, screw whitey. I got news for you. There's plenty of racist Latinos and Asians, and black people for that matter. We have to have honest conversations within our own souls about who we are and what we believe and what we want to have happen in this country going forward. And we have to have safe places and safe spaces to have those conversations without judgment and recrimination. And social media is not that place. I see people putting horrific smackdowns on each other every day. It's like WWE of words. It's getting a little ridiculous. But I can tell you this, that negative behavior is about fear and being stuck. You're stuck in a belief that you're not willing to revisit or get rid of. You're stuck in an inculcation. You're afraid of the future. You're afraid of change. You've dug in your heels. And when I say you, I mean rhetorical. I don't mean you guys. You're good people or you wouldn't be drawn. Your vibe creates your tribe. I can tell you something. I'm not stuck, and I'm not afraid, and I'm revisiting core beliefs, and I'm acting on new things. I've learned how to Zoom. I've learned how to do Facebook Live. I've built a YouTube channel. I'm not afraid of technology. I'm not afraid of mass communication. I'm not afraid of social media. I understand it wields awesome and terrifyingly fast power. But I'm getting accustomed to the responsibility of wielding said power and said speed. And I think all of us need to think about that. How powerful and fast our words and opinions get out there and become actual things. Let's make good things. Let's make safe places and safe spaces. Let's confront our inner demons and exercise them before we judge other people for not being able to exercise their own. You know how hard it is to change yourself. Think about wanting to quit smoking or lose weight or start exercising regularly. Next time you're quick to think that somebody else is lazy or stupid or unwilling. Maybe it's just a little bit harder for them. If anything, here's what I'm doubling down on. I'm doubling down on compassion. I'm putting my foot to the gas pedal of goodness. I'm excited that we're past the time of appeasement, and we'll think about that. And we're in a time of speed and action. Let's do things better, faster. Okay? I'm looking forward to coming together with you guys after my surgery, but I'm grateful that I had so much to share with you before. Let me know what you think. Love hard, forgive harder, and get as happy as you can, as fast as you can.
Tune in to Monique Marvez this Saturday night at 8 Pacific for Talk of Our Times live stream right here on YouTube. After her HBO Max premiere and after 16 days on the road with her mom, she is guaranteed to have a lot to say.